SMD Law is the official law firm of the Spartan Nation. Check them out on the interwebs at smdalaw.com or at 866-529-3537. No matter where you are in the state of Michigan, Upper Peninsula, Lower Peninsula, it doesn't matter. They have an office near you. So whether you need to send a letter to an annoying neighbor, or you're a criminal and you need defense, maybe you just have problems with elder law, check them out, smdalaw.com today. The official law firm of the Spartan Nation. Call them first, then you act.
Welcome back, everybody. Spartan Nation Radio. I am your host, Hondo Carpenter, joined each and every week by our good friend John Shop, longtime Spartan Nation senior contributor. You may know during the year he comes in every week. We talk about the good, the bad, not really necessarily the bad, but basically the state of Michigan State football. And we dig into it, we get into it, and really go through all the nuts and bolts and all of the goodies. And he's here today. Last week we did our pick six. We disagreed on 5 games. He got 3 of them right. I got 2 of them right. So on the year, he's up 1-0 over me. Let's bring him in. The one, the only, our good buddy, John Shop. John, how are you?
Pretty good. Ready for week 2. A lot of people, a lot of questions. Some answers will come this week. And when we're talking about our pick 6, we got a couple games that could potentially put somebody inching their way into the playoff mix, even though it's only the first week of September. And a couple teams may be taking a step all the way out.
All right, let's get right to it.
Right here, we've got the Big 8 throwback game. We're talking Nebraska at Colorado. Huskers, some good, some not so good last week. Colorado, almost all good, and a pretty good thump of Colorado State. The Huskers on the road to the Buffaloes.
John, I'm going to say this to you, brother. I want to believe in Nebraska, but I said before the year, I think they're a year away. I've got to stay with my gut, my brain. I'm going to go Colorado.
I would like to think that Nebraska is going to show up and do something they haven't done yet. There seems to be a little too much Nebraska cheerleading talk out there relative to how good they play, but I think they can find something to throw off Mr. Montez, the quarterback of the Buffaloes. I've got Nebraska on the road with a huge upset and obviously the first signature win for Scott Frost. And that's going to be a good one.
Well, let me just tell you this, John. I hope you're right. I want you to be right.
Colorado's got some holes. I think there's some things they may be able to do and throw up into a very bad day for Montez. So that's our first one. Our second one has changed shape since before the season, and that is Stanford and Southern Cal. Injury to the quarterback at Stanford, not sure what he's going to do. Obviously, massive injury to the quarterback at Southern Cal on Saturday night as they hosted Fresno State. That throws this one into a curve. To me, looks like a pretty even matchup. But minus the starting QB, even though they're at home, I got to go with the Stanford Cardinal on this one.
John, I agree. I'm riding the Cardinal all the way here, buddy.
We just saw the University of Maryland make an extraordinarily loud statement. A lot of points were scored against Howard University. I think it was 79-0 last week. Syracuse is a better team with some potential interest in trying to do some big things this year. Syracuse is going to Maryland. I call this a Brett Bielema fall on your face special. That's what happens after you score way too many points the week before. It's not as easy for Maryland. It feels like they're playing in mud, and Syracuse takes care of them on the road.
I'm going to take Maryland here, John. I disagree on that one big time.
Well, that would be interesting. That would be an interesting one. How about this football game? Minnesota Golden Gophers. Ooh. Some good, a lot bad, barely get out of there. Now they got to go on the road. They got to go on the road to Fresno State, a team that's just come off of playing Southern Cal. Watch out, Goldie. Trouble City here. Fresno State with the win.
I agree 100%. Absolutely 100%.
2 massive games this week. One of them has to do with the really best program in the country right now. That is the Clemson Tigers. Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher on the road to Clemson. For some reason, people believe this is going to be close. I don't know. I don't think so. I like Clemson in this one.
I think Clemson wins this one, John. I'm going to say something like 31-10.
Some folks are really trying to make it seem like it's going to be close and tight in the game of the week. I think that's not the case. The game of the week, I believe, is the Louisiana State Bayou Bengal Tigers going to Texas to play the Texas Longhorns. two looking like overrated programs. LSU at Texas.
John, I'm going to tell you something here. I'm going to give it to Texas only because they're at home. If this was being played in the Swamp, I would go with LSU.
If LSU has all the athletes they're supposed to have, especially at the point of attack, they're going to have enough of an advantage to win this game on the road. I'm going to go with the LSU Ogeron special Bayou Bengal Tigers, and that is the pick six, the six most interesting games ever this week.
Wow, John. All right, living on the wild side. I thought this was a good week of picks, don't you?
Yeah, I think there's some real even-looking matchups, and you want to see how teams react who didn't score a lot of points last week, and you want to see how teams like Maryland react. How do you handle it the next week when you're playing a real team? It just doesn't usually work very well. We remember Brett Bielema running it up at Wisconsin the week before they came to Michigan State, and the Spartans were able to win that one, I think, in a large part because of what it just throws you out of whack. It's not like you want to take the foot off the gas completely, but when you're up by 50 and 60, it's time to figure out a way not to potentially blow your balloon up so high that it's easier to pop the next week. Now, the Spartans don't have that problem. They've got to get air in the balloon and fast.
John, first of all, let's just get to the Spartan game. I don't think anybody wants to talk about it. I read for you an email that I'm going to be asking Mark D'Antonio about tomorrow. I think it's going to be explosive. But I just have to tell you, I walked away from that. The defense somehow was even better than I thought they would be. And you know this, John, because I talked to you about this privately. In my predictions for the season, I kept saying, if the offense is as improved as they say it is, if, and if. Mark D'Antonio moved all in on his legacy. He doesn't believe that. I asked him about it. He said, no, I totally do believe it. To me, the way they played on offense was atrocious. The defense had 18 points. The offense had 10, and Tulsa had 7. And really, you could have given the 7 Tulsa points to Michigan State for a Kenny Willekes bad play penalty. But, John, your overall thoughts on the game?
Well, it was a little bit of a surprise, and it sure was disappointing. The defense was just as good as advertised. The special teams, I thought, was overall really good and showed some signs of big things, even though there was a mistake or two in there. The offense was just playing worse than you would have expected, especially when you saw what was going on around the Big Ten East and at the same time after the delay down in Florida with Wisconsin in southern Florida. There's such a contrast in how efficient from the snap the offenses were relative to Michigan State. It's not good when you have 300 yards of offense and you score 1 touchdown, especially when you're 4th from the bottom in scoring offense last year. I was astonished and blown away that sometime in the third quarter, sometime in the fourth quarter, another quarterback wasn't tried for Michigan State. Not because Brian Lewerke was doing anything wrong, but because the offense was not responding. It was out of sync. It was relatively flat. It was ineffective. And for God's sake, when you're doing that bad, you go ahead and try something else. It's not like Jalen Hurts was in there. It's not like Trevor Lawrence was in there. I don't care who the quarterback is. If I'm a Michigan State Spartan at this time, I want to see an offense that gets moving. And there's not always the case that the best player on paper, the best player on numbers is the one that works best with the offense. We've seen that happen in the past, whether it was Connor Cook, whether it was Drew Stanton. We've seen guys emerge. And I think they made a big mistake and blew a great chance to see what if we get a drive to Lombardi? What if we get a drive today? Does something start to move? Because the offense is already making you think whatever win total you had projected or predicted in your mind for Michigan State football, you're probably getting ready to dial that back 1 or 2 after what you saw Friday night.
And, John, I'm just going to tell you, had they been playing a better team than Tulsa, the defense would not have looked that good for one reason. They would have been exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Tulsa's not a good team. So I didn't really like the flavor. I heard too much in the post game from the head coach. There's not any sense of urgency that stood out from that offense. That's what bothers me. That's why fans were booing. And I think they were right to boo, and I think they're going to boo again. If you are going nowhere, you've got to try everything you can to start getting somewhere. So they got to find an offensive line that works together, all five. I get that. If it's not working, let's try a different quarterback. Let's try different combinations with receivers. Let's try something. Because if you score anywhere near 7 points another game this year, you are going to be far too much looking like a repeat of 2018, and it's going to get really loud with boos very soon. Because there are games coming in September that are going to reveal the truth about what the offense has become.
John, I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think the boos are going to get loud in Spartan Stadium if this continues. I think it's going to get quiet. There were thousands of empty seats the other night. And I think it's going to continue to go down poorly.
Yeah, and surely, you would expect that. I would think that there would be a loud a booing event, if you will. And then, I think you're looking at a real empty stadium. Look, there seems to be an effort for some reason to try to shrink the football experience at Michigan State, the game day experience. And if you do that for what is primarily an entertainment product, you are guaranteeing a much smaller audience. So, I would expect real number crowds to be a lot sooner in the 40 and 50 and low 60,000 range than I would ever expect them to be 75 plus.
If you don't mind, I want to take a quick second and talk about the game day experience at Michigan State.
Sure.
You and I have talked about this for a long time. I've got an email coming up in my question and answer email article this week from a fan who has been a long-time season ticket holder, and he was out playing playing cornhole with his grandson, and he was told to stop because it was a drinking game. He mentioned to them, "It's my grandson." They told him, that they felt like it was being approached as a drinking game. Afterwards, he's there with three of his friends who he has been season ticket holders with since the 60s when they all went to state. And after every game, they smoke a victory cigar, and they were ticketed for smoking, having tobacco on campus. He talked about in the email about, you can't even get on campus till 3:30 for a 7 o'clock game. They've just ruined it, and I'm done. And the guy actually is sending me his tickets to give away for the rest of the year, said he's done. Your thoughts on the game day experience at Michigan State?
Well, it's sad to hear that. It's out of whack. It's way out of whack. It's one thing to take efforts to protect the field, Munn Field, change that, which was a dramatic step that had bad, outcomes initially. But they're just way out of whack with what the market is driving right now. Just for example, the folks at Purdue, looks like lots open about 8 hours before kickoff, no sooner than 7 a.m. So if they have what would be, I guess, a noon kick, I'd have to do the math because they're in a different time zone. But so it may be 5 or 6 hours then. And RV lots 6 p.m. the day before the game. And that's Purdue University. That's not a major football school that's competing for Big Ten championships and is competing to try to compete for national championships. Other schools around the country, typically 8 hours or so before. For example, last week, Clemson played at 8 o'clock at night. Their tailgate started at 10 a.m. This is a day-long entertainment experience, and there's no reason that you can't have it successfully at Michigan State and relatively safe, meaning about as safe as everywhere else. It seems to me, if I was looking at it from 3,000 feet away, that Michigan State was thinking about shrinking the experience, shrinking the size of their live audience. And if you want to cut down to you can't even drive in before 3.5 hours, one, you're going to create a traffic line, I would think. And two, that's not too long for people to get all the way set up, and it limits what they can cook or what they can enjoy and what they can do. And obviously, if you're going to take out some of the tailgate games that are not reliant on alcohol at all, that's a really bad message if you're trying to encourage people to come out and enjoy the campus and enjoy the game. So I would expect crowds at Spartan Stadium to continue to decrease significantly as long as this is the path they take.
John, I'm concerned about the long-term viability for Spartan football for a lot of reasons, not just the tailgating, but I'm concerned that there aren't people over there who get it. And you know this, I think I'm as dialed into that athletic department as anybody. And I am concerned that the people who matter over there don't get it. They don't get it. They don't understand. And they are ruining the product where they're going to turn off a whole group of people before they even have a chance to save it. I'm concerned about it. John,
Yeah,
my
they
son
should be.
is old enough now. He goes with me and works for us at Spartan Nation. He does pictures. He does videos. He does a great job. But this is a kid that doesn't want to go to a game if he's not working it and getting paid.
Yeah, they should be concerned. When you look at where Spartan football was 4 or 5 years ago, right in the thick of golden era, golden times, you had no trouble selling tickets. You could probably get away with a couple things that were maybe anti-entertainment relative to another time. But you look at where things were a year ago when you looked at teams that had a chance to jump up to the very top level of the sport. You had Georgia, you had Michigan State there. Georgia did. Michigan State obviously went backwards pretty far. So now you have to look at, all right, well, what can we do to have people stick with us and encourage more people to enjoy this sport live, enjoy the day live. I love the sport as much as anybody. So do you, but the sport itself is not enough to fill 75,000 seats 7 times a year. It's not even close. It's not even close if you're just talking about the sport itself. The game day experience has got to be primarily an entertainment experience, and all signs out of Michigan State right now, and I hate to say it, well, nobody wants to have to say it and take a shot and say, hey, you guys are missing it, but it looks like they have no idea what's going on, and they're missing it completely. It's almost 20 years, or just over 20 years, since the Munn Field massive change and the backlash that there was then. When you look at what's happened since then, what has been done to encourage entertainment, encourage spending the day, and what has been done to discourage it, there's too many knocks in that discourage category. And as long as they keep going that way, they're going to shrink their crowd. And this is the point I think you're making that's overall broad. It's a lot harder to get people back than it is to lose them. And the more people they lose, I think it's harder and harder to replace those fans as time goes on.
I agree. He is Spartan Nation senior writer, the one, the only, the great Johnny Shop will be back. Great Johnny Shop will be back. Great Johnny Shop.